What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Open Great League, and the team we're taking a look at today is Shadow DRIFBLIM, Shadow Drapion, and Fortress. This is actually a team submitted to the channel by Callan46, and he says, I enjoy your channel, you are an underrated shoutcaster, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to shoutcast some high-level gameplay. Keep up the good work. P.S. Sorry the battles were not individually recorded, hopefully they're still worth your time. They are absolutely worth my time. These are leaderboard battles. You guys know that I have hit leaderboard this season, and I am now in the top 200. I believe I'm sitting around 2250 currently, but this was actually submitted to me a couple weeks back, and he was 2250 then. So he was on the front page of leaderboard, rank 49 in the world. So before we hop into the battles, I want to say a special thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Reen Mustache, Soham Patil, CD Salaskas, Eliana, as well as the legend trainer members on this channel: Big Burden, Andrew Pitten, Musachu, Noodleman, Speedster, Esteros, Liminal Lagomorph, Tom Spencer, and Fast Idiot Boss. Without further ado, let's hop into these battles. Okay, into the first match, we've got Shadow DRIFBLIM into Scizor. So this is a fairly neutral lead, however, the opponent does have a super effective Night Slash here, so we will have to respect that. I imagine we will just shield this up, go for one Astonish and the Icy Wind to grab that shield back. No, just going to commit to the full farm down. Looks like the opponent has a decent IV Scizor, living that second Astonish, making it to a second Night Slash, and now we're down 2 shields to 0. What's going to come in here? It's the Giratina. So if Giratina is their best response to an up energy DRIFBLIM, something is clearly wrong in the back. We're now probably going to be able to grab both shields from the opponent unless they want to let a super effective Icy Wind go. No, they're going to give you alignment and both of the shields back. That is absolutely huge, because now in comes the Drapion. It's a Stunfisk in the back, so going to chip with the Aqua Tail first before we get out into our Fortress. Aqua Tail does connect, looking for the catch of the Mud Bomb. Don't get it, but the opponent's going to have to go for a Mud Bomb here either way. So Mud Bomb number 1 comes through. That does very little damage to the Fortress. We can survive 2 of these very comfortably. And this Fortress is actually opting for Earthquake over Sand Tomb for coverage. And that's okay in a matchup like this, where Sand Tomb, even from this range, wouldn't knock out. Yes, it's super effective, but it's such a bad move. It probably does around the same amount of damage as a resisted Rock Tomb would do. So Rock Tomb does connect. Mud Bomb now will nearly not pick up the knockout. Looks like Switch Timer just wasn't up quite yet. In comes the Drapion. Now the question is, can the opponent get to 2 Dragon Claws before you're able to get to your first crunch? And the answer is no. That is absolutely massive. Here comes the crunch. This is Shadow on Shadow. Is it enough to pick up the knockout? It is. That is absolutely massive. Poison Sting, farm down the Stunfisk, and we are able to take a Game 1 win. Into next match, we've got DRIFBLIM into Fortress. So this is a fantastic lead because the Bug Bites are resisted. However, the opponent does have Rock Tomb for coverage, so I imagine we're just going to go for the charge move right away. The opponent will outpace, though, making it to the Rock Tomb, throwing their energy 1 turn before we get to our Shadow Ball. No baits here, though. Full sending the Shadow Ball. Is the opponent willing to commit the shield? This will still knock out, and it does. That is absolutely massive. The opponent lets their Fortress go. What's in the back? It's a Pidgeot. Now Pidgeot, as a normal typing, does wall the Astonish and Shadow Ball from our DRIFBLIM, but Icy Wind is still super effective. They're actually going to let that go. We pivot into our safe swap of the Drapion, and Drapion baits out a Clodsire. So this is a really nice bait out, because this is something that the Fortress doesn't want to see, especially when the Clodsire has 2 shields left in play. So here comes Aqua Tail number 2. This is super effective damage. Is the opponent willing to commit the shield? No, not yet. They're holding on to their shields, probably for their Shadow Pidgeot, but if they do, they're just going to get fully Bug Bite farmed down from the Fortress. They do full send the Earthquake. Now in comes the DRIFBLIM, just forcing the opponent to throw their energy. The opponent doesn't even get to another charge move somehow, end up going down with that energy. Now here comes an Icy Wind. This is super effective damage. Not opting for the extra Astonish. I don't believe DRIFBLIM wins CMP there, so you should always go for the extra Astonish there. However, it does not matter. We grab that shield. The opponent cannot make it to back-to-back Brave Birds before we get the Bug Bite farm down, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, we've got Mirror Leads, DRIFBLIM on DRIFBLIM action. The opponent is staying in this matchup, and so are we. Now the question is, who throws first? And it looks like the opponent is going to throw first. It looks like you're just going to opt for the full farm down. However, the opponent's DRIFBLIM, yeah, it looks like they had slightly better IVs, because they were able to hold on with a little bit of extra HP. So instead, we snipe with the Drapion. That lures out a Marowak, and that's a nice bait out, because Fortress obviously isn't bad into the Marowak, but it's not something that the Fortress necessarily wants to see. So baiting that out is nice, especially when we have a answer of a DRIFBLIM on the lead. Back in comes the DRIFBLIM, and it's a Lapras in the back. We're baiting with the double resisted Icy Wind. The opponent actually shields that up. We make it to a second Icy Wind, but instead of throwing that, we're actually going to bank that energy, and now in comes the Fortress. Now the question is, I mean, the Marowak's energy dry, so I probably would shield this up. It's probably the hardest hitting charge move left, but no, just going to let that go. Now going for the Rock Tomb, lowering the opponent's attack. This is super effective. They have to commit the shield. And now I would overfarm here. We know one Sparkling Aria doesn't pick up the knockout. Just make sure we come out with energy. Now going to commit the shield, which is kind of funny. But in comes the Marowak. We are able to outpace. Make it to the Rock Tomb. This is resisted damage, but nobody told Fortress that. That knocks out. Back in comes the Lapras. They do have a Sparkling Aria. This probably won't knock out. Actually does knock out, just barely. But we have the double resisted Icy Wind. Is this going to be enough? I don't think it is. It's non-stab. Lapras is bulky. Yeah, the Lapras does hang on. And unfortunately, we do lose that game. Into next match, we've got Shadow DRIFBLIM into Shadow Jellicent. This is a good lead because Astonish does significantly more damage. However, the opponent will outpace to the charge move. The opponent does throw as soon as they get to the Shadow Ball, but we're going to catch on the Drapion. I'm not sure I like this play because the opponent definitely is baiting here. Yeah, so that's a neutral Surf that connects on the Drapion, but we lure out the Diggersby, and that's a nice bait out with Fortress in the back. We can avoid the double super effective Fire Punches, which is nice. And the opponent is forced to throw their energy. If this is a Fire Punch, I'm not sure it will carry out. It probably does. Yeah, it just barely does. But now in comes the DRIFBLIM. The best they can go for are non-stab Fire Punches. And after this Icy Wind, which is super effective, these Fire Punches are doing very little damage. That said, we have no ability to really farm down here unless we immediately come in with the Fortress. And not willing to do that yet. Just going to stay in. Go for a second Icy Wind to pick up the knockout as soon as we get there. Is the opponent going to come back in with a Jellicent? They are. And are we just going to look for a second catch? No, we're just going to let them throw their energy, and we're actually going to commit the shield. So question is, can we get an Astonish farm down? And unfortunately, a Scizor comes in, gets the snipe of the bullet punches, and now the opponent has a 2-shield Scizor in the back. We have to let the first one go in case the Night Slash gets the double boost. Fortunately, no double boost comes through, and I think we just have to commit to the farm down. These Bug Bites are actually doing a lot of damage for being resisted. Nobody told Fortress that these Bug Bites were resisted. The opponent does get the attack boost, but these bullet punches are still doing less damage than these Bug Bites. Can we Bug Bite farm down the Jellicent as well? When we can on 1 HP, that is absolutely insane. Double resisted, or 2 matchups where a resisted Bug Bite gets the full farm down. We are able to take that win. Into the next match, bit of a tricky lead, Malamar. We're going to safe switch into the Drapion, and honestly, the way I like to play this out is I like to throw the Aqua Tail right away because you actually outpace by a singular turn, and it misaligns the switch clock a little bit. That way, if the opponent does want to throw their energy, you can still let that go, and you can still connect with your Aqua Tails on the Talonflame. But the opponent ends up coming in with the Talonflame, going for the full Incinerate farm down. Gonna have to come back in with the DRIFBLIM here, obviously, because this is something the Fortress doesn't want to see. I think we just have to shield one, let the next one go. And yeah, the opponent's actually only going to get to 1, which is really nice. In comes the Fortress now. These Bug Bites are double super effective. What's in the back? It is a Clodsire. And honestly, this is where it's really nice running the Earthquake, because the opponent might not expect it. If I'm honest, I would shield this. Yes, this is exactly what I would have done. I would shield this, make the opponent think that I'm going for a Rock Tomb to lower their attack. They might let this go, and then if an Earthquake connects, suddenly this game is flipped on its head. So now, 1 Earthquake we know is not enough to knock out the Fortress. Fortress is pretty bulky even with these IVs. Earthquake connects, that's fine. Just going to go for the Rock Tomb right away. I think that's okay, just lowering their attack, looking for the full Bug Bite farm down. Back in comes the Malamar. Are we going to look for the catch? No, just going to force the opponent to throw their energy. And at this point, the opponent is nearly energy dry. So we can just come in with a DRIFBLIM, get the full farm down, come out with an Icy Wind loaded for the Clodsire, and the opponent will resign the match. I assume they were on Earthquake Sludge Bomb, which is why they resigned the match. Into the next match, we've got DRIFBLIM into Corsola. The opponent is also staying in this matchup. Unfortunately, both being Astonish users, the opponent has a pacing advantage to the Nightshade, which means we're forced to switch and catch onto the Drapion, and we do get the resisted Nightshade catch. and this is huge because we bait out an Annihilate, and that is absolutely something that the Fortress doesn't want to see. Bug Bites are double resisted in this matchup, and Rock Tomb is resisted. We would be forced to go for Earthquake. The opponent is going to overfarm here, playing to the CMP tie, picking up the knockout with the Rage Fist. That is a really nice play. No point in shielding because counters would do more than the resisted Poison Stings. Back in comes the Drifblim. We do get the full farm down, which is nice, and we know that the opponent is energy dry. So going to full send here, I probably would have just gone for the Icy Wind because we did get the farm down afterwards, but we do end up grabbing that shield. In comes the Fortress, and the opponent just instantly swaps into their Credility. That is a huge mistake because now we can make it to the Rock Tomb, permanently lower this Credility's attack, and then we can just look for a full Bug Bite farm down. It will be close. I've been the Fortress in this matchup, but I'm hoping that with this 8 attack, we can get the full farm down, and we can on 1 HP. Well, not 1 HP, but the opponent unable to make a charge move on 1 HP. So they will resign the match, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, familiar lead, we've got Shadow Driftblim into Malamar once again. Going to do the exact same thing, safe switching into the Drapion. And once again, getting outpaced. This opponent overfarmed slightly, playing to the CMP tie. Foul play is no shielded, and I'm not sure really why the opponent baited. I guess maybe they want to stay in this matchup because they don't have a good answer to the Drapion. But in comes the Talonflame, so we've actually seen this team before. In this matchup, you can go in that. I'm not sure if you did 4 Poison Stings in the Aqua Tail before throwing, and looks like we are still going to get to another charge move, so that's okay. Aqua Tail, obviously from this range, actually grabs a second shield from the opponent. This is the Shadow Talonflame, so a little bit glassier. But at this point, we're going to have to commit the double shield because the Fortress absolutely cannot see this Talonflame. 1 Incinerate would basically delete our entire HP pool. Yeah, and as soon as you shield this up, the opponent's going to know something's wrong with whatever's in the back. And that here, right on cue, in comes the Malamar. And no, we actually pivot into our Fortress. We fell for the opponent's bait. Are they just going to come back from the Talonflame and look for the full Incinerate farm down? Let's see how much damage these Shadow Incinerates do. Oh my god. They also make it to a charge move, preventing you from getting to a Rock Tomb there. Fly picks up the knockout. We get the full Astonish farm down. Now it just depends on what's in the back, and it's a Clodsire. Now this matchup entirely depends on the moveset of the Clodsire in the back. If they are on Sludge Bomb, this game is over. But if they are on Stone Edge, this game is also over. But we actually have a lot of residual energy, able to outpace, make it to the Shadow Ball. That is stab damage. It does more damage than an Icy Wind, despite its super effective damage, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, decent lead. We've got Shadow Driftblim into the Jumpfluff. The opponent safe switches into a Furret, and we have a fantastic response with Fortress. The reason Fortress is a fantastic response is because both of the opponent's charge moves are resisted here. They end up going for the double resisted Trailblaze to boost their attack, but we're going to lower that attack right back down with the Rock Tomb, and now the opponent actually will commit the shield. So the opponent wants to fight for switch here. Now the question is, do we commit the shield back? And Callan says the answer is no. Just gonna let that go. The opponent will be able to make it to 2 more Swifts before we get to another charge move. Are we gonna let this go? Are we gonna let them flip switch? The 1-0 shield is won by Furret, unfortunately. But this might set up the Drapion for a nice Poison Sting farm down. Can we get the Poison Sting farm down? We can, with the absolute perfect amount of energy before they make it to a Swift. And now in comes the Jumpfluff. We didn't really need switch in this matchup because Drapion is fine into the Jumpfluff with these super effective Poison Stings, but unfortunately non-Shadow Jumpfluff is one of the only Pokemon in the game that can survive 2 Shadow Crunches, just besides the obvious like Bastion and Azumarill. But instead what we're going to do is we're going to catch the next charge move onto the Drifblim, hoping that we got the Energy Ball catch, but unfortunately we did not. In comes an Azumarill, going to full send the Shadow Ball on the CMP tie. I imagine we just shield up the next and throw on the CMP tie once again, because here comes the Ice Beam. Are we going to shield this up? Ooh, are we opting for no? Trusting in the Shadow Drapion to close out this game. We do have a lot of energy here, but we are completely walled in this matchup. We basically are praying for that Crunch debuff, because that way, if we can get a full Poison Sting farm down, then this game is over. Always over farm here, making sure we're coming out with a little bit of energy to threaten the Jumpfluff, because that energy, because the Jumpfluff does have some energy, but now the opponent hasn't grabbed that second shield from us, so we're just going to throw the energy right away. Crunch does pick up the knockout. Can we get to the Crunch before the opponent makes it to the back-to-back? The answer thinks we can, so they will resign the match, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, we've got Shadow DRIFBLIM into the Shadow Scizor. We've seen this matchup before, and it kind of depends on how good the IVs of the Scizor are. This opponent throws on great timing, going for the Night Slash. This is super effective damage. We will commit the shield. Now the question is, can we get 2 Astonishes to fully farm down? And this time we can. That is absolutely massive. And now what's going to come in here? It's going to be a Tentacruel in the back. Tentacruel is not an answer to a Shadow DRIFBLIM up energy. The opponent lets the Shadow Ball go as well. We also make it to an Icy Wind. Unless the opponent commits the shield, this is going to be enough to pick up the knockout. Are they going to let that go? They are. Now they're 2 shielding whatever's in the back, and 2 Astonishes nearly erase the half of the health bar of the Golurk. But Golurk is a tricky Pokemon for our backline. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in with the Fortress, throw some resisted Bug Bites, catch the resisted Shadow Punch onto the Drapion, but unfortunately this might set up the Golurk for a full farm down. Not even going to throw the energy here. We know that we have to commit to the fast move farm down. Do we commit the shield here? Yes, we do. Shadow Punch does get shielded up. Can they make it to another charge move? The answer is no. We get the full resisted Bug Bite farm down, and we are able to take that win into the final match of the video. Mirror leads. We've got Shadow DRIFBLIM into Shadow DRIFBLIM. Just going to stay in this matchup. Are we going to play out the same way, just looking for the full farm down and the 1 shield? No, the opponent doing the exact same thing. So we end up throwing the Icy Wind on the 1 HP survive. The opponent actually goes down because it does 1 damage through the shield. In comes the Drapion to a Bastion, and Bastion is pretty tricky for this backline. So let's see what we want to do. Fortunately, Drapion is very spammy, and Aqua Tails are super effective. The opponent doesn't even want to play it out. They will resign the match, and that is rank 49 on the global leaderboards. That is absolutely massive. Huge shout out to Callan. He beat me there. I'm around this exact elo now, but this was a couple weeks ago. So I really like the concept of this team. You've got a Pokemon on the lead that is weak to Dark, and then you have 2 answers to Dark in the back. You've got a Poison Sting user with Aqua Tail for coverage and that Dark typing to resist other Dark types, and then Fortress as a Bug Bite user, hits super effective against Dark types. And then you also have Drapion, which lures out a lot of the weaknesses that Fortress doesn't want to see. Fortress doesn't love ground types, so baiting out those ground types is nice. Baiting out something like an Annihilate is absolutely massive, because you definitely don't want to see an Annihilate on your Fortress, as I kind of talked about throughout the video. So I like the style of this team. ABB in a sense that you wouldn't really expect. And it makes sense why this team is so strong. Will this team be as strong next season? Most likely not. DRIFBLIM and Drapion are going to take a bit of a hit. A lot of Pokemon will learn Brutal Swing or Crunch next season that previously didn't. So Ghosts might see a little bit of a dip, and then Shadow Drapion, there's going to be so many Steels and just so many Dragons that potentially resist both of your charge moves. I'm thinking of Hack-Mo-O, Como-O, Guzzlord, things like that. They're going to really make the matchups tricky. And then Fairies, which, I mean, you have an okay matchup with Poison Sting, but if it's like a Tinkaton, then not really. So overall, a strong team this season. I wouldn't build it now, but I really appreciate you sending in the battles, and thank you for the showcase. That's going to be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.